My name is Dan Armitage. I'm an outdoor writer and do a little bit of radio work, and that's why I know how to talk so loud.
Down, go down.
Test, test, test. And what I'm going to do for about the next 20 minutes or half hour is I'm going to make sure everybody's got their cell phones off. You're not allowed to use these for the next half hour, kid. All right? And what we're going to do is learn the basics of fishing. You kids are very lucky, all right? Every one of you has an adult who brought you to the Antlers Anglers event today, all right? Instead of doing whatever other things adults might want to do, they chose to bring you here to make sure you're exposed to the outdoors and all this cool stuff. There are a lot of kids here in Pennsylvania and all across the United States who right now are in a dark basement somewhere going like this, okay? Or watching TV like this. You guys, because of the adults that brought you here today, get to see live fish. In a minute, you're going to get to see those live fish eat stuff. In about a half hour, one of you is going to get to go up there with me and try to catch one of those fish with the cane pole, okay? So you're very lucky, and thank you for coming, and thank the adults for bringing you here today. Again, my name is Dan, and we're going to go over the basics of fishing so that the next time the adult who brought you to the Antlers and Anglers show today, the next time they say, let's go fishing, let's go see if we can catch some fish, you'll kind of know how. You'll have the basics, have a little bit more knowledge about fishing to maybe make you more successful. The way we do that is, I'm going to ask you questions about fishing. If you think you know the answer, I don't want you to yell it out. I want you to raise your hand. And if I call on you, then you can tell us the answer. And that's the way we'll learn and put this all together, okay? Who out there, just so I kind of know, how many of you have already been fishing at least once? Most of you have been fishing. Okay, all right. That's good. That kind of, I can elevate the content here a little bit. Do you remember what you went fishing for? What did you fish for?
Bass.
Bass. Give me 5. It's a good answer. We got some bass in the tank, don't we? What did you fish for?
I forget.
You forget, but it had fins and a mouth, right? It was kind of slimy. Give me 5, all right? Who else has been fishing already? You. Where did you, or what'd you go fishing for?
Big bass and...
Big bass. Not the little bass, like you just say, hey guys, I want none of that little bass. Just for big bass. Okay, that's a pretty good attitude. What about you? Big bass too. What else? Probably some bluegills or some sunfish because they look like the sun. Give me 5, that's pretty good. All right. Well, who can tell me one thing that you need to have? What's one of the things you need to, I haven't asked the question yet. What's one of the things you need to have to go fishing? Yes, sir.
A lure.
A lure. Give me 5. Yeah, a lure. I think that a lure is pretty important. Let's see here. What else do you need to go fishing? A little bit of line. That's very important. Give me 5. To have a little bit of line to be able to go fishing. What else do you need to go fishing?
Fish.
Fish. That's a very important answer. You know your teeth are completely blue. Fish. And that's a real important answer. We've got to make sure that we got water that's clean enough, that's accessible enough, that's healthy enough to have healthy fish for us to go catch. So it's important to keep an eye on things, especially things that go into the water, okay? Anything you put in the sewer at home eventually is going to go into where your water is, where those fish swim, and maybe where you drink from. So fish is very important, and to do that, we just always kind of got to be thinking to make sure that the water that we've got around us is being kept clean and good. Yes, what else? A fishing pole. Give me 5. Do you need your 2 front teeth to go fishing? Yeah, you don't have any, dude. What are we going to do? You'll be all right. You'll be all right. All right, what else do you need to be able to go fishing? Sir, what else do you need to be able to go fishing?
A picture of my daughter.
A picture of your daughter. All right, that'll work, I guess. That'll work, I guess. Yes, ma'am. You need your hands to be able to take the fish off the hook and bait your hook, right? Those are all pretty important things to have. A pole, a line. Really, at its most basic, all you really need to catch a fish is a hook, a line, and bait, something that the fish wants to eat. And that was shown to me very succinctly a few years ago. I told you I'm an outdoor writer. I write for some of the magazines you may read, Field and Stream and Outdoor Life and In Fisherman. And I get sent on trips all over North America to do stories on the fishing. Sometimes I get to go even farther away. When I get sent on these trips, the people who make the fancy fishing rods always send me the latest fishing rod or the latest lure, the latest fishing reel, hoping that I'll put it in my pictures or talk about it. So I usually show up at these places and I've got the best, latest, coolest fishing tackle. Well, I got booked to go to a place called Puerto Rico. And whenever I do one of these trips, I always try to go a day or two early so I can fun fish, okay? Because otherwise there's cameras on me or I'm taking pictures or it's not as much fun. So I always go a day early and fun fish. And this time I was fun fishing on a dock behind my hotel in Puerto Rico. And I had all this fancy rods and reels and I'm casting off this dock and I wasn't catching anything. About a half an hour after I was there, some young kids, about these kids' age, from the local town or village, I guess it was a town, showed up. These kids, you could tell, they weren't riding fancy bikes. Some of them didn't have shoes on. You could tell they didn't have a whole lot of stuff. But they came down and a couple of them started going through the dumpsters and the trash cans, dumpster diving. I'm thinking, man, are these kids looking for food? One little girl immediately went under the dock where the piers were coming up from the ocean waters where we were. Another kid went over to the beach and started turning over rocks. And one little boy came up to me, and he couldn't speak English, and he kind of tugged, said, Meester, and he made the hook shape. And I knew that he wanted some hooks, so I had some hooks. So I gave this little Puerto Rican kid some hooks, and just kind of was casting and kind of watching to see what they did. They all gathered together, and when they broke apart, they had made fishing rigs like this. The kids that were dumpster diving were looking for the empty water bottles left behind by the tourists. The little girl's job was to go under the docks and find old fishing line that people had left behind or broken off. The kid that was on the beach, he was turning over rocks and stuff trying to find bait for everybody. And they tied these things together with the line and the bottles, and they used them to cast with their arms, okay? And they could cast them a mile. And they used the bottles as their reels, okay? They used their arms as their fishing rods. They put water in the bottle and put the crabs and the minnows and the clams that they could find right there around the docks. And this was their fishing rig, okay? They made it in about 10 minutes. And with the bait in there, they'd shake it every now and then to make bubbles so it was aerated. What's more, these little kids stood right next to me and started catching fish in the same place I've been fishing in for like 45 minutes with all the latest, greatest, newest lures and fishing tackle. And it taught me an important lesson. It taught me that it's not having the latest, greatest fishing tackle or the newest fishing rod or the rocket fishing rod. That's not what catches fish. What catches fish is thinking about where the fish are, where they want to be, and what they want to eat, and then giving it to them so it looks real. And what those kids were doing with these simple rigs is they were casting around cover. They weren't casting way out like I was. They were casting to places where they knew the fish were. Now, when you look at Alan, this is Alan over here. He's a bass fisherman and travels all over the place towing this giant fish tank. What Alan's got in here that's cool for you guys, and I'm glad some of you are sitting up front where you can see, is you get to see where fish want to hang out when no one's bothering them, okay? So look at these fish up here. Look at the tank, and you'll see there are some places where there's almost no fish, other places where there's lots of fish. That's the way it is under the water when you're fishing out here, Pymatuning or any of the ponds or lakes around here. There's places where there's a whole bunch of fish and places where there's not very many, okay? One of the things that you're seeing here is a lot of fish in certain areas, and it's kind of key, all right? What do you do on a day like today and the sun is just too bright for your eyes? What do you do? Yes, sir. Go fishing. Give me 5. All right, you can go fishing any day. Good answer. But if the sun's bothering you while you're fishing, what can you do? Yeah.
Put sunglasses on.
Put sunglasses on. Very good. What else can you do when it's too bright for you? Yes.
Put a hat on.
Put a hat on. That's a very good answer. Sunglasses, hat. What am I doing now? I'm squinting or shutting my eyes, right? So those are all things that we can do when the sun gets too bright. But a bass or a fish, okay, it's a little different. A fish can't wear a hat underwater to shield its eyes, right? Because the hat will just float away. So they can't wear a hat when the sun gets bright. For sunglasses, you need ears to hold them on, okay? So a fish can't use sunglasses, right, to protect its eyes. What's more, here you go. Hey, we're at a sports show, man. You got to wear it Bubba style, okay? There you go, like that. What's more, fish don't even have eyelids. Fish don't have eyelids, so they can't shut their eyes or squint or do anything. So when it gets bright, like on a day like today for fish, what fish do to protect their eyes when it's too bright is they go find structure for shade, okay? That's one of the reasons. This is like the darkest part of the tank. So those fish are kind of hanging around that stick because there's shade. Sometimes they'll hang around under the bubbles because even the bubbles are shade. So that's important, especially on a day like today. If you're going fishing and you're all rigged up and ready to go, and you've got a hook with a worm or a minnow or something on it, and you've got a choice to drop that line on the shady side or on the sunny side of a stump or a rock or a bridge piling, what side do you want to stop it on? Yes, drop it on.
Shady side.
The shady side most of the time, okay? So that's kind of your thinking about fishing. Now those little Puerto Rican kids, the other thing they were doing is they weren't making really long casts. They were kind of waiting, and they'd all kind of cast together to these spots. And what I figured out they were doing is they were waiting for the ferry boat to go by about every 5 minutes. And that ferry boat would leave a wake. It'd make a wave, and that wave would wash up under the docks and wash all the stuff, all the little crabs and minnows and stuff out where the fish could get them. And they would make sure that they had those kind of baits on there, and they'd throw them out and let them drift, and the little grunts and the snapper and the grouper would come up and eat them, okay? Pretty simple tackle. What I recommend is what the first, I think, 100 of you kids got today. What I recommend for beginning anglers of any age is a rig like this. Who knows what this kind of a fishing rig, what's this called? Who knows what kind of a fishing rig this is? Yes, ma'am?
Fishing pole.
It's a fishing pole. Give me 5. Who knows the difference between a fishing pole and a fishing rod? Think you do? Yep.
Well, a fishing rod is like something that you put your line on and comes out. Wait, no.
He's saying a fishing rod is something you kind of put a reel on and cast, and that's close. Fishing rod is made out of man-made materials, fiberglass, graphite. Fishing pole is natural, bamboo, hickory in the old days, okay? So pole is something like cane, and that's what this is bamboo cane pole, okay? Wherever I go to do fishing stories, here in the U.S. or elsewhere, I usually find somebody fishing with some kind of cane. Most people, you can go out and harvest it, cut it down yourself, or go to a store. Usually they're about $5. What you got today, a lot of you with these cane pole kits is, it's a kit with a hook and a line and a sinker and a bobber. And I've kind of given a lot of you a bobber that I like a little bit better because it's easier to adjust. But this is a cane pole kit. And one of the reasons they use cane, wherever it's found, is it gets really long, it's lightweight, and it bends instead of breaking. So if you catch a fish or have a fish hit it and the fish tries to swim away, it bends that pole, and when the fish gets tired and stops, the pole brings it back. And it gets tired, and then you can bring it in. So cane pole, all right? When I rig one of these things, and I know you've all got these packages of kits, kids, I don't want you to open them and open them here at the show, okay, because you'll be walking around with them. Wait until you're in the car on the drive home, and then go ahead and open them up and try to put them together in the car, all right? When I rig one of these for a kid, what I try to do, you'll have a lot more line on there than you need, by the way, in this kit. Break off about, or cut off about 10 feet of it, tie it to the tip, and make it a little bit shorter than the pole is long. That'll allow you to nest that hook in the hollow butt section, and it'll kind of keep off the inevitable hooking of the dog or the car upholstery or you or the kid, okay? All right, so bamboo. By the way, that's the fastest growing plant in the world. Bamboo can grow a foot in one day. It's actually, this used to be a blade of grass, if you can imagine having to mow that lawn, okay? So bamboo, it's just a good thing to use for beginners because it eliminates the reels that can break or get tangled, or it's the simplest form of fishing I know of other than just wrapping some line around an empty water bottle. This is what one of you is going to use here in a minute when one of you goes up there with me. If you hook a fish with a cane pole, what you do is, if it's a small fish, you can point straight to the sky and the fish will kind of come into you. If it's a big fish, you can kind of go like this with it and bring it in straight. Or if you're on the bank and you got room behind you, if you hook a big fish, like a catfish or a big bass, just back up and drag the fish up the bank. Watch out or you'll end up sitting in a minnow bucket or kicking over the tackle box. When you're fishing with a cane pole and you want to cast it, you don't cast it and throw it like a baseball. You just swing it out, drop your rod tip, hold on with both hands and watch that red and white thing. Okay, when you want to check your bait, nice save, there's a hook on the end of that line, so we'll be real careful right now. When you want to check that line, that was just too tempting for that guy. When you want to check your line, you just point it straight up and everything will come to you, okay? So pretty simple stuff. And a real easy way to catch a bunch of fish without a lot of hassle, which is why I like them. Now, that red and white thing on there, I've got the world's biggest one here. Who knows what this is? What's this called? What is this? What is that? What is that?
Bobber.
Raise your hand. Yes, kid in the red shirt. What is that?
Bobber.
It's a bobber. Give me 5. Who knows what a bobber's for? What does this do? Yes, ma'am. What's a bobber do?
Try to see where the bobber is so you can see
where your line is. That's perfect. A lot of people don't get that. A lot of people think that a bobber is really just used to bob up and down or move when a fish takes your bait. But what she said was excellent because it allows you to see where your bait is. And that's real important, especially for kids. They need something to look at. It's a lot more fun when you can say, hey, Junior, watch that bobber over there, okay? And then it gives them something to focus on. So that was very good. It also holds the bait up where the fish can see it. Most fish, like this bass, and Alan's got a bunch of largemouth bass in there, use their eyes for their food. Without a bobber, your bait can sink down in the bottom and get lost in the grass or the rocks or the weeds. And the sight feeders that we have here in Pennsylvania might miss that bait, might not be able to swim over and see it. So bobber we use most of the time. But there's one species, and Alan, I think I've got one in there. See if there's a green squishy fish species in there that you can see. Because it's one fish species that we fish for where we usually don't use a bobber. Who knows what kind of fish this is? Yes, sir.
Catfish.
It's a catfish. Give me 5. All right, it's a catfish. Who knows why they would call this a catfish? Why do you think, why would they call that a catfish? Yeah, they call it catfish. The whiskers. Give me 5. All right. Because of the whiskers. Who knows what the whiskers on a catfish are for? What do these things do? You've got whiskers. What do you use your whiskers for? She just looked away and got real red. Okay? In fact, you're a little red around here right now. I wonder what those whiskers did earlier. All right. What do you think these whiskers are for on a catfish?
To sense the food.
Exactly, to sense the food. A lot of people don't know that. What catfish whiskers do is like our tongue. They taste with them and kind of smell with them. So a catfish finds its bait by smell. That's why its eyes are real small. That's why you can fish for them on the bottom and why we usually don't use a bobber. Because you want your bait on the bottom where the catfish will swim and drag its whiskers along and taste the stuff like worms and dead fish and clams and fish poop that catfish love to eat. Okay? So this is one species we fish for, usually without a bobber, and put it on the bottom. And it is an interesting thing. It is what we use for bait. Because there are a lot of different things that we can use for bait when we go fishing. There's some popular ones and there's some, wait a minute, I've got to take a break here. Excuse me. In school, are you allowed to chew gum in the classroom? No.
Yeah. Well, my school.
At your school. Most schools, they don't allow you to chew gum in the classroom. And this is kind of like a classroom, right? A little bit. Sort of like a classroom. You're sitting in seats and there's a teacher here. Well, I want you to spit out your gum, please. Right here in my hand. Thank you. So there's lots of different things that you can feed fish or put on your hook to make them bite. If you don't have any bait, or the baits you're not using or your baits you are using aren't working, you can try different things like maybe even gum. If you happen to have some gum or somebody's chewing it, you can take things like gum, and let's see if we can make this look like fish food that a fish would eat. What flavor is this? Mint. Oh, yeah, the bass are gonna. So what I've done is I've made this look like a mint worm or a worm, right? I guarantee you that somewhere for sale, they're selling worms that look just like this for fishing bait, okay? And we just made one out of that kid's gum. So we're gonna see if the fish think it looks good enough to eat. Look at it sinking. Here comes a bass. Right down its nose. You're going to see fish come down and start to look at that. And if there's a catfish in here, if one of those bass doesn't eat that, a catfish is going to come out at night, use its whiskers, and gobble up that piece of gum. I guarantee it will not be here tomorrow. So you can use food that we like, including, are these M&Ms? What are they?
They're the Reese's.
Oh, Reese's, okay. So you can try things like, those little hot stick things, beef jerky. I used to use hot dog buns for bait. That looks a whole lot like a trout pellet. Look at the bluegills coming over to that. They're going to pay some attention to that. But hot dogs and pieces of bologna work very, very well as alternative baits. A lot of stuff that you want to eat, you'd be surprised that fish will eat too, and you can use them as alternate baits. One of the things that you need to do is put that bait on something that will allow you to catch a fish. Would this be a good hook for catching bluegills and sunfish over in Pimat? Whoa, why not?
Might be good for a shark.
Might be good for shark, and that's exactly what kind of hook this is. This is the biggest real hook made for fishing. It's a shark hook. I used to work for the Key West Citizen newspaper down in the Keys. It's where I lived for a number of years after school. And a lot of my buddies that worked on the lobster and crab boats had hooks like this that they would bait with big chunks of tuna and all kind of crazy things to catch giant sharks. And they would hook these sharks and use them, cut them up and use them for crab bait and lobster bait in the old days when that was okay to do. But we know it's a shark hook because it's got a chain leader on it. Sharks don't chew their food, they swallow it whole. So they would swallow this hook, and if it was just tied to a regular line or rope, they could bite through it with their teeth. But because it's chained, they can't bite through it, and you can catch that shark, okay? So this is kind of big, and you're right, that's a good answer. That means that the world's biggest fishing hook is completely out of line here for most of our fishing here in northwest Pennsylvania, right? But I want you to remember that if you're fishing and your bobber's going under and you're kind of hooking them every now and then, but they fly off the hook or you just can't catch them, it's probably because your hook is too big. You can catch any fish in there with a size 8 or even 10 hook. That's what you're going to be using in a minute when one of you guys goes up there with me. A very small hook. So when in doubt, remember this and go, ooh, let me try a little bit smaller hook. Those of you who have been fishing before, what did you use? Raise your hand, just so I can see you again. Okay. What did, who's got their hand up out here? You do. What did you use for bait? Worms. Did you raise your hand? I'm sorry. Did you raise it? She wanted to be called on too, okay? So worms, right? You didn't hear that from her. That was from your own head. Worms. How do you know? Are you the one that took her? Nah, good for you.
It's only 2.
Okay. Well, worms make very, very good bait for a whole lot of different species. Worms are one of my favorites. The worm that you used probably looked like this. This is a night crawler. Go ahead and hold that, because you've used them for bait already. Go ahead. No, I'll let her do it. Yeah, she'll do it just fine. Okay. Here we go, guys. So pass that around if you would. These are live night crawlers. Go ahead and make sure that everybody gets to kind of hang on, because these make, again, just about any fish in Pennsylvania will eat one of these night crawlers. Okay, pass that around. Ooh, I've got more. Just about any fish will eat a night crawler, and they make super duper. Here, I've got some more night crawlers. There you go. And there's one for you. And one more there. Oh, I'm sorry, those are fake. I would never throw real night crawlers at you. I promise I would never throw a real night crawler at you. Those make great baits. Do those night crawlers, okay? Let's see how good. Here, we got two here, right? These make great baits, but only if they look natural. If they look natural, the worm will get eaten by the fish. Look how long it takes that night crawler to sink. Look at the bluegill turning to it. Look at the one coming from over there. They're sight feeders. All right, right here. Notice how long it takes these worms to sink. Notice how they're all wiggly waggly. They're not rolled up in a little ball. Watch them and remember that. Remember what they look like, because when a fish sees a real worm, it doesn't look like that, right? And that's what a lot of people do with their worms to fish with them. They stick them on the hook so many times, they look like a little balled up thing there, and they put them on a heavy hook and it goes shoom, okay? Those real worms sank real slow in the water, and they had two ends out to wiggle, and that's what the fish are expecting to see. So, when you want to use a live worm for bait, thread it on the hook. Get that shank buried in the middle of the worm. Leave two ends to wiggle. Don't use a sinker if you don't need it. Don't use a swivel if you don't need it. Flip it out there. Let it sink naturally, and you're going to go a lot farther in trying to get a bite than if you impale it, a bunch of times and it looks like that, okay? So worms make great baits. One of my favorite fish species is this. And we've got some in here. Who knows what kind of fish this is supposed to be? Yeah.
A rock bass.
A rock bass. Close. Close. It's a relative of the rock bass. Yes, sir. The sweatshirt. A crappie. All right. Crappie, one of my favorite fish. By the way, tip for you for crappie, and the veteran crappie anglers know this. Crappies will hardly ever feed down. If you're fishing for crappie and you print them on your screen, your sonar screen, you see a school of crappie, always put your baits a little higher, because crappie's eyes are on the top of their head. They will swim up to eat a bait, and they'll come up, but they will rarely go down for a bait, okay? So always fish a little shallower for crappie. Those of you who have been crappie fishing, raise your hand. Okay. Pretty many of you. All right, crappies. What did you use for bait when you went crappie fishing?
Maggots.
Maggots make great baits, larval baits. That's a good one. Who else has been crappie fishing? Yeah, what did you use for bait?
Worms.
Worms make excellent baits. Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Are you actually over 55? Can I see the hat? That's a cool hat, may I? Minnows are a very special bait for a lot of different species, and especially crappies, okay? Here's what live minnows look like in a dude's 55 and over hat. All right, real quick, got to do this. All right, live minnows, okay? Look, live minnows. Oh, he just put them, yeah, you can put that in there. Smorgasbord, he just put his night crawler in the hat too. All right, so these are live minnows in this hat. And we're doing this really quick because minnows are fish, and they can't live out of the water for very long, okay? Because they can't breathe. It's sort of like us in the water, okay? So live minnows in the hat. I'm going to come back here to anybody who doesn't want to come up. Live minnows in a dude's 55 and older hat. Live minnows in a dude's +1 kind of slimy worm, okay? All right, so here we go. Live minnows, okay? But we've got to do this really quick because, again, they can't live very long out of there, okay? Here we go. All right, here we go. So now what we got to do is get these back in the water because, like I said, they can't live very long. But if you fish with minnows, you want them to look like this. and the fish will eat them. Watch. Look at these minnows. Watch them swim. Let's see what happens. Look at the bass. They're trying to hide. That is what live minnows look like in the water, and that's what the fish are used to seeing. You've got to allow your minnows to look like that and swim free like that, and they will get eaten. You can't do that by putting them on a heavy hook or using any kind of heavy line. This hat smells, man. You do a lot of fishing wearing this because it's got the odor. Maybe you should wear this one until that one thaws out. Oh, we got to do it like this because we're bubbas. Okay. All right. So minnows make really good baits, but again, only if you put them on a light wire hook and not a lot of lead or a lot of other stuff. Let them try to swim as naturally as they possibly can, okay? I'm going to go fishing, and you had a couple good answers, and I want you to go up there with me. You want to go fish? All right. We're going to try to put this all together now, but we need your help one more time, kids, all right? We're going to go up and see what we can do here about catching one of these fish. Okay. You can come on up here to the bass boat. Okay. Doing well. You stand right here in the middle. Okay. Right here in the middle. There you go. Okay. What's your name?
Alexa.
Alexa, where are you from?
Tynesta.
Okay. Who brought you here today, Alexa?
My grandma and papa.
Ah, Grandma and Papa, right? Where are they?
Right there.
Have them wave. There they are. That's a guy with a bright hat, huh? You're one of those lucky kids, again, that you've got folks, adults willing to take you and spend a day with you, letting you see stuff like this instead of staying home watching TV or play video games, right, Alexa? All right. Now, one of the things we want to make sure and do is make sure that Alexa is safe. So we're going to put on one of these. What is that?
Life jacket.
A life jacket. You know how to put that on? You know how to snap it? Because kids in boats or anywhere around the water, with my own son when he was little, we went fishing from the shore once and it was early spring and he went sliding down a mud bank right into the lake, okay? He wasn't wearing a life jacket. So not only when kids are aboard a boat, but if they're around the water, docks and stuff where they could fall in, a life jacket is good. They make them now to fit kids in the right sizes. You've got to snug them up. And the way you test to make sure that the life jacket is snug is you lift up on the shoulders a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good, pretty snug on Alexa here, right? Feel pretty good with that? All right, now we're gonna fish. The kids, this is where we need your help. We've got two kinds of bait, right? We got worms and we have minnows. You're going to decide what Alexa uses for bait by yelling it. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and after 3, I want you to yell minnow if you want her to use a minnow, or worm if you want her to use a worm as loud as you can. Whichever one we hear loudest, that's what we're going to use for bait, okay? So minnows or worms on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's not... Okay, time out. It's not longest yell, it's loudest yell. But that was pretty good. What did you hear loudest? Minnow. See, I heard worm louder. So it's kind of a tie. All right, we're going to divide it up. Just the worms. Just the worm, kids. Loudest, not longest. If you want her to use a worm as loud as you can on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, again, it's not the highest, because that was kind of squeaky. All the dogs in the audience just kind of went, okay? That was pretty good, though, worms. I don't think the minnows can beat that. That was too loud. There's no way. Minnows, do you think you can do louder than that? That was pretty loud. Yeah? All right. Minnows, if you want us to be using a minnow, I want you to yell minnow as loud as you can on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I think minnows it is. All right, Alexa, go ahead and grab a minnow there. I'm going to get your rod ready. Just go ahead and grab one of those minnows out of there. Just go ahead and grab one. Very good. One of the things that you want to do, one of the things about using live bait is getting them used to doing what she just did, okay? Get minnows, get worms, get all kinds of fun stuff, and let the kids play with them and learn how to handle them like she just did, and it'll make it a whole lot more fun fishing. All right, Alexa, I'm gonna put this minnow on your hook. There's a lot of different ways to hook them. I'm gonna hook them from the lip, through both lips, from the bottom up, okay? We're gonna swing this out if we can. Got kind of low hanging branches there. And go stand there and watch that bobber. So you can see her minnow swimming. Is anything looking at it? This is one of the important things about fishing that it teaches is patience. Is anything looking at her bait? Yeah? Wow. What was on her minnow? What ate her minnow? A bass. All right. So we're going to let it go down there again. Is anything coming to look at her bait? All right, well, we're going to be patient because that's the other thing that fishing teaches is sometimes it's not immediate gratification like it is with a video game. Sometimes you've got to wait a little bit to get the fun part, okay, the catching the fish. So it teaches patience. Now, notice, remember how we talked about some places where there are a lot of fish and some places where there's not very many fish? We're going to put this out a little bit farther to where maybe there's more fish hanging out. Okay, going to get it in some current, and we're going to watch that. But she's keeping her rod tip low. We know one bass is hungry and ate it. I've got the barb turned down off that hook, so if she does happen to hook one, it'll probably fight and spit it out again like that one did, but we'll see. All right, I'm going to put it out one more time, see if I can swing it. Again, we got this big oak tree over the water hole here, and let's see if we can get it down to the other end a little bit. Okay. And see what comes. Now, the water is real clear here, and those fish can kind of see us up here. So another trick is, when the water is very clear, stay back off the bank a little bit, because the fish will see you. Is anything looking at her minnow?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, I'm going to let her hold on to that and wait a little bit. But you want the minnow to be able to swim free and look real. What I would do next is maybe take that weight off of there, because we've got a sinker. That can kind of make the minnow swim a little bit lethargically. Okay? That can also affect its action. Is anything coming over to look at it yet? No? Maybe. I'm going to try one more trick here to see if we can swing this a little farther out to where there might be some more fish. Okay? I want you to hold on right there, okay? And we're going to wait and see if we can catch something. We've got another show coming up. Alan, what's up here next? We've got the face painting parade, right?
Face painting 145.
What? Face painting in about 5 minutes over here, right? Okay, we got the Labrador Retrievers out here at 145 as well. Kids, I'm going to wait and see if she can catch one here for a couple minutes, but I want you to go to the adult who brought you to Antlers and Anglers today. Go find him in the audience right now and say, "Take me fishing," because now you know how, right? Thank you for coming to our show. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for bringing the kids out to the Antlers and Anglers program. Lots more to do and see and buy. Thank you for coming out to our show.